The lobby of Harbor House Hotel felt peaceful at 10:15 on a Tuesday night. Claire Whitmore finished checking in the last guest of the evening, her fingers dancing across the keyboard with practiced ease. She loved these quiet moments. No demanding phone calls, no rushed checkouts, just the soft hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of waves against the shore outside. A gentle splash caught her attention. Near the concierge desk, Marcus Reed guided his mop around a small puddle where the old radiator had leaked again. He worked with careful movements, making sure every drop disappeared without leaving streaks on the marble floor. "Thank you for catching that," Claire called over, smoothing down her navy blazer. Mrs. Patterson would have slipped for sure if she came down for her midnight tea. Marcus looked up, his warm brown eyes crinkling at the corners. "Can't have that. Mrs. Patterson's been staying here longer than I've been working here." 3 years for you, right?" Claire walked closer, her heels clicking softly. "She's been coming here for 7. Always gets room 214. Always orders chamomile tea at 11:30. You remember everyone's details." Marcus wrung out the mop, his movements efficient but never rushed. "That's a gift." Claire felt heat rise in her cheeks. Marcus always noticed things like that. While other staff members just did their jobs, he paid attention. He remembered that Mr. Chen liked extra towels and that the elevator on the east side squeaked on rainy days. "Just part of the job," she said, but her voice came out softer than she intended. Marcus leaned the mop against his cart. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The lobby felt smaller somehow, like the space between them had shrunk. "There's this coffee shop down on Marina Street," Marcus said finally. His voice was steady, but Claire caught the slight hesitation before he continued. "They make this caramel latte that's basically like drinking a hug. I was thinking, maybe you'd want to try it sometime. On your day off, I mean." Claire's stomach did a little flip. She'd wondered if Marcus might ask her out. They'd shared dozens of these late-night conversations over the past few months. He made her laugh. He listened when she complained about difficult guests, and when he smiled, really smiled, her whole day felt brighter. But the staff handbook sat heavy in her mind. Section 4.2. Romantic relationships between employees require disclosure to management and may result in schedule changes or reassignment. "I can't," she said quickly. The words came out sharper than she meant them to. "I mean, the hotel has policies about dating at work. It gets complicated." Marcus nodded slowly. His expression didn't change much, but something shifted in his eyes. A door closing quietly. "Of course, I understand." He picked up his mop again. "Just thought I'd ask." Claire wanted to say more. Wanted to explain that it wasn't about him, that the policy existed for good reasons, that her position as assistant manager meant she had to be extra careful. But the words tangled in her throat. "I should finish these reports," she said instead, "and I should finish this floor." Marcus's voice stayed friendly, professional, but the easy warmth from earlier had disappeared. Claire returned to her desk, but the numbers on her computer screen blurred together. She kept glancing toward the maintenance corridor where Marcus worked. At 11:47, she saw him helping Mrs. Patterson down the stairs, offering his arm like she was royalty instead of just an elderly guest in a bathrobe. Near midnight, Claire gathered her purse and jacket. The elevator dinged softly as she waited. Down the hall, Marcus coiled a hose around his arm with practiced motions. His back stayed straight, his movements careful and precise. "Good night, Marcus," she called. He turned, offering a brief nod. "Good night, Ms. Whitmore. Drive safe." Ms. Whitmore, not Claire. The formal distance hit her like a small slap. Claire's alarm buzzed at 5:15 the next morning. She normally arrived at 7, but the quarterly reports needed finishing before her meeting with the general manager. The hotel felt different in the pre-dawn darkness. Quieter, emptier. Even the ocean seemed to whisper instead of crash. She'd barely settled at her desk when a shrill alarm cut through the silence. Third floor, water damage alert. Claire grabbed her radio and hurried to the stairwell. Her heels echoed against the concrete steps as she climbed. On the third floor, she found chaos, but it was organized chaos. Marcus stood in the hallway, directing 2 night housekeepers like a calm general in the middle of battle. Water spread across the carpet from the utility room, but it wasn't rushing or pooling. Fans already hummed in the corners. The housekeepers moved linens and furniture with quick, efficient movements. "How bad is it?" Claire asked, slightly breathless from the climb. "Pipe burst in the utility room," Marcus said, without looking up from the valve he was adjusting. "Old coupling finally gave way, but we caught it fast. Maybe 20 minutes of flow." 20 minutes? Claire pulled out her phone to call the emergency plumber. That could be thousands of dollars in damage. Not if we stay ahead of it. Marcus straightened, wiping his hands on a towel. "Jenny and Rosa are moving everything that can't get wet. I've got the main valve shut and temporary drainage set up. Fans are pulling moisture before it can soak deep." Claire lowered her phone. Around them, the crisis hummed with controlled energy. No panic, no confusion. Just people working together under Marcus's steady direction. A door opened down the hall. Mrs. Green appeared in a purple bathrobe, her white hair twisted in curlers. "What's all the commotion, dear?" Before Claire could answer, Marcus walked over to the elderly woman. His voice dropped to a gentle tone. "Morning, Mrs. Green. We had a small plumbing issue, but everything's under control. The hallway's going to be a bit noisy for a few hours while we dry things out." "Oh, my!" Mrs. Green clutched her robe tighter. "Is it safe? Should I pack my things?" "You're completely safe," Marcus assured her. "But if the noise bothers you, I can arrange for the hotel to comp your breakfast in the restaurant. Much quieter down there." Mrs. Green's worried expression relaxed. "That's very thoughtful. You're sure it's safe?" "Positive. But let me walk you to the elevator, just to be careful." Marcus offered his arm, escorting Mrs. Green like she was the most important person in the building. Claire watched them disappear around the corner. When Marcus returned, she was still standing in the same spot, holding her phone. "You handled that perfectly," she said. Marcus shrugged, but she caught the small smile. "Mrs. Green's been coming here since before my grandmother died. She deserves to feel safe." For the next hour, Claire watched Marcus coordinate the emergency response. He never raised his voice, never seemed stressed. When the plumber arrived at 6:30, Marcus had a complete report ready. What happened, what he'd already done, what still needed attention. At 7:15, with fans humming steadily and the immediate crisis contained, Claire found Marcus in the supply room. He sat on a stack of towels, drinking water from a plastic bottle. "Here." She handed him a fresh bottle from the mini fridge. "You've been working for 2 hours straight." "Thanks." Marcus accepted the water, his fingers brushing hers for just a moment. "Just doing my job." "No," Claire said firmly. "What you did tonight was way beyond your job. You probably saved the hotel $15,000 in damage." Marcus looked uncomfortable with the praise. "Jenny and Rosa did most of the work. I just pointed where to put things." "You organized everything. You kept Mrs. Green calm. You had a plan before anyone else even understood the problem?" Claire sat down on a stack of towels across from him. "That's leadership." "I used to help my dad with emergencies when I was a kid," Marcus said quietly. "He was a maintenance supervisor at an apartment complex. Always said the first 5 minutes of any crisis decide how bad it gets." Claire felt something shift in her chest, a recognition. Marcus didn't just mop floors and fix leaky pipes. He understood responsibility. He cared about people. He saw problems coming before they exploded. Her phone buzzed. A text from GM Patel. Need incident report ASAP. Corporate wants documentation. Claire stood, smoothing her skirt. I need to document everything for corporate. Thank you, Marcus. Really? He nodded, already looking tired. Just glad nobody got hurt. As Claire walked back to the elevator, she realized something had changed. Not just her opinion of Marcus, though that had definitely shifted. Something deeper. The way he'd handled the crisis, the care he'd shown Mrs. Green, the quiet competence. It all pointed to character. Real character. The kind that had nothing to do with job titles or employee handbooks. The staff break room buzzed with Tuesday morning energy. Coffee brewed in the corner while housekeepers grabbed breakfast bars between room cleanings. Claire sat at the small table by the window, typing her incident report on her laptop. You and Marcus made quite the team this morning, said Jenny, one of the housekeepers who'd helped with the flood. She grabbed a banana from the fruit bowl, grinning. Very professional. Claire's fingers paused over the keyboard. We were just handling an emergency. Uh-huh. Jenny's grin widened. And the way you looked at him when he helped Mrs. Green? That was just professional too? Heat crept up Claire's neck. I was appreciating good customer service. Sure you were. Jenny headed for the door, still smiling. Just saying, you two work well together. Different backgrounds, but you both care about this place. After Jenny left, Claire found herself staring at her laptop screen. Different backgrounds. It shouldn't matter, but she knew some people would notice. The assistant manager and the night janitor. The woman with the business degree and the man who'd never mentioned college. She opened the staff handbook on her phone and scrolled to section 4.2 again. The language was clear. Relationships between employees required disclosure. They could affect scheduling, performance reviews, advancement opportunities. Claire had worked 3 years to earn consideration for the hotel manager position. The promotion board met in 6 weeks. She couldn't afford complications. But as she finished typing her report, her mind kept drifting to Marcus's steady voice during the crisis. The way he'd treated Mrs. Green with such gentle respect. The brief moment when their hands touched over the water bottle. At tennis, she emailed the report to GM Patel and scheduled a debrief meeting. Through the break room window, she could see Marcus in the parking lot, loading his truck after his night shift. He moved slowly, exhaustion clear in the line of his shoulders. She wondered if he slept well during the day, if his apartment was quiet enough, if he had people who appreciated what he did. The questions felt dangerous and sweet at the same time. Monday morning arrived with crisp autumn air and the scent of coffee from the hotel restaurant. Claire straightened her burgundy suit jacket and checked her reflection in the elevator mirror. The vendor review meeting would determine cleaning contracts for the next year. Professional image mattered. The conference room overlooked the harbor, where fishing boats bobbed like toys against the morning sky. GM Patel sat at the head of the polished table, flanked by the facilities director and the head of housekeeping. Claire took her usual seat, notepad ready. We're expecting representatives from 3 companies, Patel said, adjusting his glasses. Harbor Cleaning Solutions, Coastal, Maintenance, and Reed and Harlow facilities. Claire knew Harbor and Coastal from previous years. Both solid companies with reasonable bids and reliable service. Reed and Harlow was new, a smaller outfit that had recently taken over several contracts around town. At exactly 9 nows, the first representatives arrived. Harbor's team looked identical to last year. 2 middle-aged men in gray suits with matching briefcases. They presented their proposal with corporate efficiency, promising the same service at a 3% price increase. Coastal came next. Their rep, an energetic woman named Susan, highlighted their eco-friendly products and flexible scheduling. Her presentation felt warm but rushed. At 9:45, the conference room door opened again. Claire's pen slipped from her fingers. Marcus Reed stepped into the room wearing a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. His shirt was crisp white, his tie a subtle navy pattern. He carried a slim leather briefcase and moved with quiet confidence. "Good morning," he said, his voice the same warm tone she knew, but somehow more polished. "I'm Marcus Reed, co-owner of Reed and Harlow Facilities." Co-owner. Claire's mind reeled as Marcus shook hands with Patel and the other staff members. When he reached her, his grip was firm and professional. "Ms. Whitmore," he said with a slight nod. "Mr. Reed," she managed, hoping her voice sounded steady. Marcus took a seat across from her and opened his briefcase with practiced ease. No fumbling, no nervousness. He looked like he'd been running business meetings his entire life. "Reed and Harlow specializes in hospitality maintenance," he began, his presentation smooth and well organized. "We understand that hotels require more than basic cleaning. You need partners who respond to emergencies, maintain guest relations, and protect your reputation." He clicked through slides on his tablet, showing before and after photos of properties he'd serviced. His teams work at an upscale bed and breakfast, emergency response times at a downtown office building, safety improvements at a senior living facility. "Our philosophy is simple," Marcus continued. "Every building tells a story. Our job is to make sure that story reflects quality, care, and attention to detail." Claire found herself leaning forward, genuinely impressed. This wasn't the same man who mopped lobby floors and fixed broken pipes. This was a businessman who understood hospitality from the ground up. "What sets Reed and Harlow apart from larger companies?" asked the facilities director. "We're local," Marcus replied without hesitation. "When the Harbor House needs emergency service, we're 10 minutes away, not waiting for corporate approval from 3 states over. When you call, you get me or my partner directly. And every member of our team lives in this community. Your success is our success." Patel nodded approvingly. "Your emergency response proposal is impressive. Can you elaborate on your experience with crisis management?" Marcus's eyes flicked briefly to Claire before returning to Patel. "Last week, the Harbor House experienced a burst pipe on the 3rd floor. Within 20 minutes, our team had contained the water damage, protected guest belongings, and coordinated with emergency plumbers. Total recovery time, 4 hours. Estimated damage, minimal." Claire's breath caught. Marcus was talking about the night he'd saved the hotel thousands of dollars, but he was presenting it as a Reed and Harlow success story. Because it was. Marcus had been working as Reed and Harlow's representative that night. The quiet janitor she'd known for 3 years was actually the co-owner of a growing facilities company. The presentation continued for another 15 minutes. Marcus answered every question with expertise and confidence. When he finished, the room felt different, energized. "Thank you, Mr. Reed," Patel said, standing. "We'll review all proposals and have a decision by Friday." Marcus packed his materials efficiently. As the room cleared, he and Claire found themselves alone for a moment in the hallway. "Congratulations," Claire said, the word coming out smaller than she intended. "Thank you." Marcus straightened his tie, a small, nervous gesture that reminded her of the man she knew. "The priority is safer maintenance and stable hours for our crew. Nothing else matters." Claire nodded, but her mind was spinning. Marcus owned a company. He wore suits to business meetings. He'd been working night shifts at the Harbor House, not because he had to, but because he chose to. Everything she'd assumed about him was wrong. "I should get back to work," she said. "Of course." Marcus extended his hand again. "It was good seeing you, Ms. Whitmore." They shook hands in the empty hallway, and Claire felt the same little spark she'd felt when he'd handed her the water bottle after the flood. But now, everything was different. Now she didn't know who Marcus Reed really was. The hotel's lobby cafe hummed with late-morning conversation. Business travelers tapped on laptops while locals sipped coffee and read the newspaper. Claire sat in her usual corner booth, reviewing the vendor presentations on her tablet. "Excuse me, dear." Claire looked up to find Mrs. Green approaching with a steaming cup of tea and a warm smile. "Mrs. Green, how are you feeling? Any problems with your room after the flooding incident?" "Oh, heavens, no. Everything was perfect." Mrs. Green settled into the seat across from Claire, her movements careful but confident. "I actually wanted to thank you for how well that whole situation was handled. And that young man, Marcus, I think, he was simply wonderful." Claire's heart gave a small jump. "Wonderful how?" "So calm and reassuring. He made sure I felt safe, arranged for my breakfast to be comped, even walked me to the elevator." Mrs. Green stirred honey into her tea. "But the most remarkable thing happened later." "Later?" "Well, I mentioned to the front desk that I had a follow-up appointment with my cardiologist after the excitement of that morning. Just casual conversation, you understand. But when I went to leave for my appointment, the strangest thing happened." Claire leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "A taxi was waiting for me, already paid for." Mrs. Green's eyes twinkled. "The driver said someone had called ahead, covered the fare both ways, and left instructions to wait as long as needed for my appointment." "That's very nice," Claire said carefully. "Did you find out who arranged it?" "The front desk claimed they didn't know anything about it, but I have my suspicions." Mrs. Green sipped her tea. "There aren't many people who knew about my appointment, and there's only one person who seemed truly concerned about my well-being that morning." Claire's chest felt tight. "Marcus paid for your taxi?" "I can't prove it, but—" Mrs. Green shrugged with a knowing smile. "Sometimes the kindest people are the ones who don't want credit for their kindness." After Mrs. Green left, Claire sat alone with her cooling coffee and racing thoughts. Marcus had anonymously paid for an elderly guest's medical transportation. Not because anyone asked him to, not because it was his job, because he cared. Her phone buzzed with a text. "Claire, it's Marcus. Could we talk for a moment? I'm by the maintenance entrance." Claire's hands trembled slightly as she typed back, "On my way." She found Marcus leaning against the loading dock, still wearing his business suit but with his tie loosened and his sleeves rolled up. The contrast between the polished businessman from this morning and the approachable man in front of her felt jarring. "I wanted to clear the air," Marcus said as she approached. "About this morning, the meeting. You don't owe me any explanations." "Maybe not, but I want to give you one anyway." Marcus rubbed the back of his neck, a gesture she recognized from their late-night lobby conversations. "I bought into Reed and Harlow 8 months ago when the original owner retired. It's a small company, just me, my partner James, and 6 crew members. We needed contracts to grow." "So you took the night shift here to—" Claire's voice trailed off as understanding dawned. "To learn the building, to understand what the harbor house actually needed instead of just guessing in a proposal." Marcus's voice was steady but vulnerable. "I wanted to do the job right." Claire felt something crack open in her chest. "You spent 8 months working night shifts to research one contract? This isn't just any contract. The harbor house is the nicest hotel in town. If we can prove ourselves here, other hospitality contracts will follow." Marcus looked out toward the harbor, where seagulls wheeled above the fishing boats. "But I also liked the work, liked the people, liked feeling useful." "Marcus," Claire started, then stopped. What could she say? That she'd completely misjudged him? That she'd turned down his coffee invitation because she thought he was just a janitor? That she felt like an idiot and a snob? "I heard about Mrs. Green's taxi," she said instead. Marcus's cheeks darkened slightly. "She mentioned that?" "She didn't say it was you. She just suspected." Claire stepped closer. "That was really kind." "She was scared. Older people shouldn't have to worry about transportation to medical appointments." "But it wasn't your responsibility." Marcus shrugged. "Maybe not. But it was the right thing to do." Claire studied his face, the gentle confidence in his eyes, the slight embarrassment at being caught doing something good. This was the same man who'd asked her for coffee 3 nights ago. The same man who'd directed the flood response with calm expertise. The same man who'd just presented a business proposal that impressed everyone in the room. She'd been so wrong about him. "I owe you an apology," she said quietly. "For what?" "The coffee. When you asked me out, I said no because of workplace policies, but that wasn't really why." Claire's voice felt thick. "I said no because I thought I made assumptions about who you were, based on your job title instead of your character." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentle. "What assumptions?" "That you were just the night janitor. That we came from different worlds. That it would be complicated for the assistant manager to date someone in maintenance." Claire's face burned with shame. "I was worried about how it would look. And now? Now I realize that I don't know you at all, and that the assumptions I made say a lot more about me than they do about you." Marcus nodded slowly. "I understand why you'd think that. A guy who mops floors and empties trash cans asking out the assistant manager? From the outside, it does look like different worlds." "But it's not, is it?" "No, it's not." Marcus met her eyes directly. "I have a business degree from State. I worked corporate facilities management for 5 years before buying into Reed and Harlow. I choose to work hands-on because I believe in understanding every aspect of what my company provides." Claire felt like she was seeing Marcus clearly for the first time. Not the janitor, not the businessman, just Marcus, a man who worked hard, cared about people, and had probably been hurt by her rejection more than he'd let on. "Would you be willing to try again?" she asked, her heart hammering. "The coffee invitation, I mean, but with full honesty this time, about work policies and boundaries and everything else." Marcus smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him since that night in the lobby. "I'd like that, but let's keep it simple for now. Just coffee. As friends who are getting to know each other." "Friends," Claire agreed, though the word felt both safe and insufficient. As she walked back toward the hotel, Claire's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Saw you chatting with the help. Careful about appearances, Claire. T. Tyler." Her ex-boyfriend, who somehow always seemed to know things about her life that weren't his business. Claire deleted the message without responding, but a cold feeling settled in her stomach. If Tyler had noticed her conversation with Marcus, who else might be watching? The staff group chat lit up Claire's phone just after 3 p.m. She was reviewing invoices in her office when the notifications started buzzing. Jenny had posted a photo from earlier that day. Claire and Marcus standing by the loading dock, both smiling, caught mid-conversation. The caption read, "When the assistant manager and the new business owner find something to laugh about. Cute moment." Claire's stomach dropped as comments started appearing. "Wait, Marcus owns a business? They look good together. Plot twist of the century." "Didn't see that coming." Claire immediately texted Patel. "Regarding the staff photo, I want to clarify that my conversation with Mr. Reed was strictly professional. Vendor relations only." Patel responded within minutes. "Noted. Please document all vendor interactions for the compliance review next week. We need to maintain clear boundaries during the selection process. Compliance review. Claire's chest tightened. She'd forgotten about the quarterly audit that corporate had scheduled. With 3 companies bidding for the maintenance contract, every interaction would be scrutinized. Her phone rang. Unknown local number. Hello? Claire? It's Marcus. I got your number from the hotel directory. I hope that's okay. Of course. What's wrong? You sound tense. My partner saw the staff chat photo. He's worried about the optics affecting our bid. Marcus's voice was strained. James thinks we should maintain complete distance until after the contract decision. Claire sank into her desk chair. Patel wants me to document all vendor interactions for the audit. This is getting complicated fast. Maybe we should postpone that coffee conversation? Maybe we should. Claire hated how disappointed she sounded. The audit happens next week. After that, decisions will be made and boundaries will be clearer. After that, Marcus agreed, but something in his voice suggested he wasn't sure there would be an after. Another message popped up in the staff chat. This one from Tyler. Interesting development. Clean floors and clean reputations both matter in hospitality. Just saying. Claire stared at the message, her face burning. Tyler's meaning was clear. Be careful who you associate with. Protect your reputation. Remember what matters. She started typing a response, then stopped. Anything she said would only draw more attention. Instead, she gathered her things and headed for the parking lot. It was only 6:30, but she needed air, space, time to think without her phone buzzing every 30 seconds. In the parking lot, she spotted Marcus loading cleaning supplies into a Reed and Harlow van. He'd changed out of his suit into work clothes, cargo pants and a company polo shirt. Seeing him back in maintenance mode felt like emotional whiplash. Their eyes met across the pavement. Marcus raised his hand in a brief wave. Nothing lingering. Nothing that could be misinterpreted. Claire waved back and kept walking to her car. As she drove home along the coastal highway, she thought about the day's revelations. Marcus's hidden business success. Mrs. Green's story about the anonymous taxi. Tyler's pointed comments about reputation. Most of all, she thought about the moment when Marcus had asked if she'd be willing to try again. The hope in his voice. The possibility that had opened up between them. A possibility that now felt tangled in policies and audits and other people's opinions. Claire pulled into her apartment complex and sat in the car for a long moment, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of rose and gold. Tomorrow, she would start documenting every interaction with Reed and Harlow. She would maintain professional distance. She would protect her promotion prospects and Marcus's contract. But tonight, she let herself imagine what might have been if timing and circumstances had been different. If she'd said yes to coffee that first night. If she'd seen past job titles and paychecks from the beginning. If she'd been brave enough to choose connection over caution. The sunset faded to purple, and Claire finally went inside, carrying the weight of missed moments and the fragile hope that maybe, somehow, it wasn't too late to choose differently. 2 days passed, like a careful dance. Claire documented every interaction with Reed and Harlow in her compliance notebook. Thursday morning, brief hallway conversation about a slippery loading dock, duration 3 minutes. Thursday afternoon, Marcus installed anti-slip mats, no verbal exchange required. The gossip from the staff photo had mostly died down. People moved on to other topics, the upcoming Halloween decorations, complaints about the new coffee supplier, speculation about holiday bonuses. But Claire caught herself watching for Marcus during shift changes, looking for his van in the parking lot, listening for his voice in the hallways. Friday at noon, she sat alone in the staff cafeteria with a turkey sandwich and her compliance notes. The pages showed a pattern of professional distance. Nothing that could raise questions during the audit? So why did it feel like she was lying to herself? Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. "Dinner Sunday? I'm making your favorite pot roast." Claire smiled and typed back. "Yes. 6 Mo? Perfect. Tyler mentioned he might stop by too. He's been asking about you." Claire's sandwich suddenly tasted like cardboard. Tyler had a talent for inserting himself into family gatherings, especially when Claire was trying to avoid him. She put her phone away and focused on her notes. Professional. Documented. Safe. Sunday evening brought the smell of rosemary and garlic through Evelyn Whitmore's front door. Claire's childhood home looked the same as always. Cream carpets, family photos in silver frames, fresh flowers on every surface. "You're too thin," her mother announced, wrapping Claire in a perfumed hug. "And you look tired. Are you sleeping enough?" "I'm sleeping fine, Mom." Claire hung her jacket in the familiar closet next to her high school graduation photo. "Just busy at work. The promotion interview is coming up soon, isn't it?" 6 weeks. Claire followed her mother into the kitchen, where pot roast simmered in the slow cooker. "Patel says the board is considering 3 internal candidates." "You'll get it," Evelyn said firmly, stirring gravy on the stovetop. "You've worked harder than anyone in that hotel. You deserve recognition." The doorbell rang before Claire could respond. "That must be Tyler," Evelyn said, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "He said he had some charity event flyers to drop off." Claire's jaw tightened, but she managed a neutral expression as Tyler walked into the kitchen. He looked exactly the same as always. Perfectly styled brown hair, expensive casual clothes, confident smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Claire, you look beautiful," Tyler said, leaning in for a hug that lasted a second too long. "How have you been?" "Busy, working." Claire stepped back, maintaining distance. "Mom mentioned charity flyers?" "Right." Tyler produced a glossy brochure from his jacket pocket. "The annual Arts Foundation Gala. I'm on the planning committee this year. Thought you might want to attend. It's the kind of event that looks good for someone seeking career advancement." There it was, the subtle reminder that Tyler moved in circles that mattered, that he could open doors for her if she played along. "I'll think about it," Claire said politely. During dinner, Tyler dominated the conversation with stories from his work at the investment firm. Big deals, important clients, vacation plans to Napa Valley. Evelyn hung on every word, occasionally glancing at Claire with expressions that clearly said, "See what you gave up?" "So tell me about the hotel," Tyler said, cutting his pot roast with surgical precision. "I heard through the grapevine that you've been chatting with some interesting vendor representatives?" Claire's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "Vendor relations are part of my job." "Of course, but it's important to maintain proper boundaries, don't you think? Especially with the promotion so close." Tyler's smile was sharp. "The hospitality industry is all about image and reputation." Evelyn looked confused. "What vendors? Is there a problem at work?" "No problem," Claire said quickly. "We're just reviewing maintenance contracts. Standard procedure." "I'm sure Claire knows how to handle herself professionally," Tyler continued, his tone suggesting the opposite. "Though in my experience, it's always wise to be selective about the company you keep. Birds of a feather and all that." Heat rose in Claire's chest. Tyler was talking about Marcus, making assumptions based on a single photo in a staff chat. "I think I can manage my own professional relationships," Claire said, her voice cooler than intended. "Of course you can, dear," Evelyn said soothingly. "But Tyler has a point about appearances, especially in management positions. People notice everything." Claire wanted to argue, wanted to point out that Marcus was a business owner who'd impressed everyone in the vendor meeting, that he'd shown more integrity in 8 months than Tyler had in 2 years of dating. Instead, She changed the subject to holiday plans. After dinner, Tyler lingered on the front porch while Claire gathered her things. "I hope I didn't overstep earlier," he said, his voice softer now, almost apologetic. "I care about you, Claire. I want to see you succeed." "I know." Claire shouldered her purse, avoiding his eyes. "Thanks for dinner conversation. Maybe we could grab coffee sometime, catch up properly. I miss talking to you." The offer hung in the evening air. Safe. Familiar. Exactly the kind of relationship that would never cause workplace complications or family concerns. "I'll call you," Claire said, knowing she wouldn't. Across town, Marcus Reed sat at his sister Jada's kitchen table, picking at leftover lasagna and fielding gentle interrogation. "You've been moping for 3 days," Jada observed, refilling his iced tea. "What happened with the hotel woman?" "Her name is Claire, and nothing happened. That's the point." Jada raised an eyebrow. She was 2 years younger than Marcus, but had inherited all the family wisdom. Her nursing scrubs were wrinkled from a 12-hour shift, but her eyes were sharp and alert. "Nothing happened? Or you're making sure nothing happens?" Marcus sighed. "The hotel's doing a compliance audit next week. Our contract bid is under review. Any personal relationship with staff could compromise both our business and her promotion chances." "So you're protecting her career?" "I'm protecting both our careers." Jada leaned back in her chair, studying her brother's face. "And what happens after the audit? After the contracts are decided?" "I don't know. Maybe nothing changes. Maybe she decides a maintenance contractor isn't worth the complications. Or maybe she decides you're worth fighting for." Marcus looked up from his lasagna. "It's not that simple, Jada. We come from different worlds. She went to private school. I barely finished community college before Dad got sick. She wears designer suits to work. I wear cargo pants and work boots. So maybe the differences matter more than we want to admit." Jada reached across the table and smacked his arm lightly. "Marcus Anthony Reed, you stop that right now. You own a business. You've got contracts all over town. You saved that hotel thousands of dollars and paid for an old lady's taxi out of your own pocket. What exactly makes you think you're not good enough?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. The question hit deeper than career concerns or audit complications. It touched the place where a boy from the east side of town still wondered if he belonged in meetings with college-educated managers. "She turned me down the first time," he said quietly. "Because of workplace policies. You said so yourself." But maybe that was just an easy excuse. Jada leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. "Baby brother, you've been taking care of everyone else since Dad died. You put me through nursing school. You bought into that company to give your crew better jobs and health insurance. You work night shifts to understand your clients' needs instead of just taking their money. Your point? My point is that any woman who can't see your worth isn't worthy of you. But from what you've told me about Claire, she sounds like someone who does see it. Someone who's just scared of the complications." Marcus finished his iced tea, considering. What if I pursue this and it ruins everything? The contract, her promotion, both our reputations? What if you don't pursue it and spend the rest of your life wondering what might have been? Later that evening, Marcus drove the long way home along the coastal highway. Jada's words echoed in his head as he passed the Harbor House Hotel, its windows glowing warm against the dark ocean. He'd built his business by taking calculated risks. Maybe it was time to risk his heart the same way. Monday brought rain and a text message that changed everything. Marcus was reviewing work orders in his office when his phone buzzed. "Free deep clean for Mrs. Green's room tonight. She spilled tea on the carpet. Logged as goodwill within our quarterly contract allowance. No charge to hotel. James." Marcus smiled. His business partner had a soft spot for elderly guests, probably because his own grandmother had raised him. A no-charge deep clean was good business and good karma. At 7:00 p.m., Marcus and his crew member David arrived at the harbor house with specialized carpet cleaning equipment. Mrs. Green opened her door wearing a floral housecoat and a grateful smile. "Oh, you didn't need to come personally," she said, stepping aside to let them in. "I know you must be busy running your company now." "Never too busy for our favorite guest," Marcus replied, pulling on work gloves. "Besides, David's the best carpet technician in the county. Your room will look better than new." While David worked on the tea stain, Marcus cleaned the bathroom fixtures and dusted surfaces that the regular housekeeping staff couldn't reach. Mrs. Green sat in her chair by the window, offering commentary and homemade cookies. "You know," she said, watching Marcus work, "I've been coming to this hotel for 7 years. I've seen a lot of staff come and go, but I've never seen anyone care about the details the way you do." "Details matter in hospitality," Marcus said, polishing the bathroom mirror to a perfect shine. "Indeed they do. And I've noticed that young woman, Claire, seems to care about details too. You two have that in common." Marcus paused in his polishing. "Ms. Whitmore is very professional." "Professional, yes, but also kind. She always remembers that I like extra pillows and that I prefer the newspaper delivered with my morning coffee." Mrs. Green's eyes twinkled. "Kindness recognizes kindness, I think." When they finished an hour later, Marcus left a handwritten note on hotel letterhead explaining the service. "Complimentary carpet restoration. Mrs. Green, room 214. No billing required. Covered under Q4 Goodwill Allowance per Reed and Harlow contract terms. M. Sir Reed." He signed it officially and left a copy at the front desk for hotel records. 20 minutes later, Claire found the note during her evening floor check. She read it twice, then smiled despite herself. Marcus had found a way to help Mrs. Green while staying completely within contract guidelines. Professional, documented, thoughtful. The kind of thing that protected both their positions while showing his character. At 9 p.m., Claire was heading to her car when she spotted Marcus in the third-floor hallway, coiling vacuum cords around his arm. Their eyes met across the distance. "Thank you," she mouthed silently. He nodded once, then returned to his work. Professional, appropriate, safe. But Claire's heart beat a little faster as she walked to the elevator. Saturday afternoon found Claire in the busy public cafe on Marina Street, the same one Marcus had mentioned that first night. She'd come for their excellent Wi-Fi and peaceful atmosphere, planning to review vendor proposals away from the office. The autumn air was crisp and clear, perfect for walking. The cafe buzzed with weekend energy, families sharing pastries, students studying, couples lingering over coffee and conversation. Claire had just ordered a caramel latte when a familiar voice said, "Make that 2 caramel lattes." She turned to find Marcus standing beside her at the counter, looking relaxed in dark jeans and a navy sweater. Out of both his janitor uniform and his business suit, he looked younger, more approachable. "Hi," she said, suddenly aware of her heartbeat. "Hi yourself. Mind if I join you? All the other tables are taken." Claire glanced around the crowded cafe. He was right. Every seat was occupied except for the empty chair across from her corner table. Of course. They settled at her table with their matching lattes, the coincidence feeling both accidental and meant to be. The large windows overlooked the marina, where sailboats bobbed in the afternoon sun. "This was the place you mentioned," Claire said, wrapping her hands around her warm cup. "The coffee that's like drinking a hug." "You remembered." "I remember most things you tell me." They sat quietly for a moment, watching boats drift past outside. The silence felt comfortable instead of awkward. "Can we talk honestly for a minute?" Marcus asked finally. I think we both need to. The audit has us walking on eggshells. Your promotion is coming up. My contract is under review. We're both protecting our careers. Claire nodded. Smart, responsible adults making smart, responsible choices. Exactly. But I keep thinking about what happens after all that's decided, when the stakes settle down. What about it? Marcus leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping to a more intimate tone. I'm still interested in getting to know you better, Claire. Not the assistant manager or the promotion candidate. You, the person who remembers guest preferences and stays late to help with emergencies and tries to do right by everyone. Claire's chest tightened with something between hope and fear. And I'm interested in knowing you better too. The real you. Not just the business owner or the night janitor. The person who pays for taxi rides anonymously and cleans carpets for elderly guests and builds a company because he wants his crew to have better lives. So we agree that there's something worth exploring here. We agree. Claire took a breath. But we also agree that timing matters, and boundaries matter, and we both have too much to lose right now. Marcus nodded slowly. So we wait. We stay professional at work. We don't do anything that could hurt your promotion or my contract. We wait, Claire agreed. But after the audit is done and contracts are decided, after that, we try again. Honestly this time, with all our cards on the table. Marcus smiled, the first completely relaxed smile she'd seen from him in days. I can live with that plan. Good, because I was hoping you'd say that. They spent the next hour talking about everything except work. Marcus told her about growing up with 3 sisters and helping his father with maintenance jobs during summer breaks. Claire shared stories about college and her first job at a small bed and breakfast where she'd learned to love hospitality. At 3:15, they parted ways outside the cafe. Marcus headed toward his truck while Claire walked to her car. No lingering goodbye, no hand-holding, just 2 people who'd found understanding and were willing to wait for the right time to pursue it. Neither of them noticed Tyler Ames sitting in his car across the street, camera phone in hand, smiling as he reviewed the photos he'd just taken. Monday morning brought autumn rain and an email that made Claire's blood run cold. Claire, need to discuss vendor relationship protocols before the audit. Please see me at 10 a.m. Patel. Her hands shook slightly as she closed her laptop. Someone had reported the cafe meeting, or seen something that raised questions, or decided that her interactions with Reed and Harlow needed closer scrutiny. She spent the next hour reviewing every documented interaction, every timeline entry, every professional boundary she'd maintained. On paper, everything looked appropriate, but the knot in her stomach suggested that paperwork might not be enough. At exactly 10 a.m., Claire knocked on Patel's office door. Come in, Claire. Have a seat. GM Patel looked tired behind his wire-rimmed glasses. A stack of vendor files sat open on his desk, with Reed and Harlow's proposal on top. I'll get straight to the point, Patel said, folding his hands. I received a message over the weekend expressing concern about potential conflicts of interest regarding the maintenance contract review. What kind of concerns? The suggestion was that you might have developed a personal relationship with one of the vendors, which could influence the selection process. Claire's mouth went dry. Who made this suggestion? That's not important. What matters is that we address any potential issues before the compliance audit next week. Patel's voice was kind but firm. I need you to be completely honest with me, Claire. Is there any personal relationship, friendship, dating, anything beyond professional interaction between you and Marcus Reed? The moment of truth sat between them like a live wire. Claire could lie, could claim complete professional distance, could protect herself and hope for the best. Or she could trust that honesty was always better than deception. Marcus asked me out 3 weeks ago, she said quietly. I declined because of workplace policies. Since then, we've maintained professional boundaries. We had one accidental meeting at a public cafe on Saturday, where we discussed keeping appropriate distance until after all contract decisions are final. Patel nodded slowly. Thank you for being honest. What you've described doesn't constitute a conflict of interest, but it does create the appearance of one. What does that mean for the audit? It means you'll need to recuse yourself from all vendor meetings and contract discussions through the end of the review process. I'll handle Reed and Harlow interactions personally. Claire's heart sank. Recusing herself would protect Marcus's contract, but would also signal to everyone that there had been a problem. Questions would be asked. Assumptions would be made. I understand, she said. I'm also going to recommend that you and Mr. Reed avoid all contact, professional and personal, until after the audit is complete and contracts are finalized. Can you commit to that? Yes. Good. I'll document our conversation and add your recusal to the audit file. This doesn't reflect poorly on your performance, Claire. If anything, I appreciate you coming forward voluntarily. But as Claire left Patel's office, she knew the damage was done. Someone, probably Tyler, had planted seeds of doubt about her professionalism. The promotion board would hear about the vendor recusal. Questions would linger about her judgment. She pulled out her phone and sent Marcus a simple text. I'm stepping back from all vendor meetings through the audit, taking space so nothing hurts your contract or my promotion. His response came an hour later. I understand. Thank you for protecting us both. But understanding didn't make it hurt less. That evening, Claire sat in her apartment with a glass of wine and a heart full of second-guessing. Rain pelted the windows while she stared at her phone, debating whether to call Marcus and explain properly. Instead, she called Jada Reed. She'd found Jada's number in the staff emergency contact list. Marcus had listed his sister as his backup contact for business emergencies. Calling felt like crossing a line. But Claire needed someone to understand the situation from Marcus's perspective. Hello? Hi, this is Claire Whitmore from the Harbor House Hotel. I hope it's okay that I called. I got your number from Marcus's contact information. Claire! Jada's voice brightened immediately. Marcus talks about you constantly. What's going on? I wanted to explain why I had to step back from vendor meetings, why I can't talk to Marcus until after the audit is done. Claire told Jada everything. The staff photo, Tyler's implications, Patel's concerns, the forced recusal. She explained how stepping back was meant to protect both their careers, not signal disinterest. That brother of mine thinks you're rejecting him, Jada said when Claire finished. He's convinced he's not good enough for someone with your education and position. That's not true at all. I know that. You know that. But Marcus has been taking care of everyone else for so long, he's forgotten how to let someone care about him. What should I do? Give him time to think it through, and when this audit nonsense is over, be very clear about what you want. Marcus is worth fighting for, but he needs to know you think so too. After they hung up, Claire felt marginally better. At least Marcus would hear the truth from his sister, even if he couldn't hear it directly from her. Outside, rain continued falling, washing the streets clean for morning. Wednesday brought sunshine and an unexpected visitor to Claire's office. Mrs. Green stood in the doorway holding an envelope and wearing a determined expression. I hope I'm not interrupting, dear. Of course not, Mrs. Green. Please, sit down. How can I help you? Actually, I'm here to help you. Mrs. Green settled into the chair across from Claire's desk. I've been watching the goings-on around here, and I think some nonsense needs to be cleared up. What kind of nonsense? The kind where good people get punished for being good people. Mrs. Green placed the envelope on Claire's desk. I've written a letter to your general manager explaining exactly what happened during the flood emergency. How professionally you handled everything. How Marcus saved this hotel thousands of dollars with his quick thinking. Claire picked up the envelope, her name written in Mrs. Green's careful handwriting. You didn't need to do this. Yes, I did. I've been in business for 40 years, dear. I know what office politics look like. Someone is trying to cause trouble for you and that young man, and I won't stand for it. Mrs. Green. Furthermore, Mrs. Green continued, her voice gaining strength, I want you to know that I think Marcus Reed is one of the finest young men I've encountered in years. Professional, courteous, genuinely caring. Any organization would be lucky to have him as a vendor, and any woman would be fortunate to have his attention. Claire felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you. That means more than you know. You deliver that letter to Mr. Patel, and you hold your head high, Claire. You've done nothing wrong except care about people. Don't let anyone make you feel ashamed of that. After Mrs. Green left, Claire sat holding the envelope and feeling like a lifeline had been thrown into dark water. She walked immediately to Patel's office and delivered the letter personally. Mrs. Green asked me to give you this, she said, placing it on his desk. Patel opened the envelope and read silently, his expression brightening as he progressed through Mrs. Green's detailed account. This is excellent testimony, he said when he finished. Mind if I include it in the audit file? Mrs. Green would probably be delighted. Claire, this letter makes it very clear that you and Marcus handled the flood emergency with complete professionalism. It actually strengthens both your records. For the first time in days, Claire felt like she could breathe properly. But as she returned to her office, she found Tyler waiting by her desk with flowers and a smug smile. Heard you've been having some workplace complications, he said, holding out a bouquet of white roses. Thought you might need cheering up. Tyler, what are you doing here? Bringing my favorite girl flowers? Can't a man show appreciation for someone special? Claire didn't take the flowers. Did you call Patel about Marcus? Tyler's smile widened. I might have expressed some concerns about maintaining professional standards. You know how important reputation is in hospitality. Anger flashed through Claire's chest. You had no right to interfere in my work. I had every right to look out for someone I care about. Claire, you're better than this. You don't need to settle for some maintenance worker with a fancy title. You deserve someone who can match your ambitions. Marcus owns a successful business. He impressed everyone in the vendor meeting. He's intelligent, caring, and hardworking. He's also black, Claire, and you're white. And that matters to some people, whether we want it to or not. The words hung in the air like poison. Claire stared at Tyler, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time. The entitled assumption that he could control her choices. The casual racism disguised as concern. The manipulation wrapped in flowers and false affection. Get out, she said quietly. Claire, I'm just trying to... Get out of my office, get out of this hotel, and don't contact me again. Tyler's facade cracked slightly. You're making a mistake. When this fantasy falls apart, don't come crying to me. He dropped the flowers on her desk and walked out, leaving Claire shaking with anger and clarity. She threw the roses in the trash and spent the next hour updating her vendor interaction timeline with brutal honesty. Every conversation, every feeling, every boundary maintained and reason why. If the audit wanted transparency, she'd give them transparency. The truth was worth defending, even if it cost her everything. Thursday morning brought news that changed everything. Claire sat in her office, reviewing quarterly reports, when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw your ex bothering you yesterday? Thought you should know he's been asking questions about Marcus around town. A friend. Her stomach dropped. Tyler wasn't content with just causing trouble at the hotel. He was actively investigating Marcus, probably looking for ammunition to use against them both. Claire forwarded the message to Marcus with a simple note. Be careful. Tyler is digging into your background. Marcus's response came quickly. Let him dig. I've got nothing to hide. But Claire knew that in Tyler's world, the truth didn't matter as much as perception. He could twist anything to fit his narrative. At 10:30, her computer chimed with an email from corporate. The audit team would arrive Monday morning for 3 days of interviews and document review. Claire's recusal had been noted and approved. The investigation would proceed without her input on vendor relationships. She should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt sidelined from her own career. Friday afternoon, Marcus stood in his workshop going over invoices when James Harlow burst through the door with a grim expression. We've got a problem, James said, setting down a manila folder. Someone's been calling our references, asking pointed questions about our financial stability and business practices. Marcus looked up from his paperwork. What kind of questions? Whether we've ever been late on payments, whether we carry proper insurance, whether we've ever had safety violations or worker compensation claims. James opened the folder to reveal printed emails. 3 clients called to ask why someone was investigating us. Any idea who? Guy named Tyler Ames. Claims he's doing due diligence for a potential client. But the questions felt more like digging for dirt than genuine business inquiry. Marcus rubbed his temples. Tyler was escalating his interference, trying to damage Reed and Harlow's reputation before the audit results came back. What did our references tell him? The truth, that we're reliable, professional, and fully licensed, that our safety record is spotless and our insurance is current. James sat down across from Marcus. But here's the thing. This kind of background check suggests someone with serious connections, corporate connections. Tyler works for an investment firm. He probably has access to business databases and reference networks. The question is, why is he going to such lengths to discredit us? Marcus thought about Claire's text from the day before, about Tyler's flowers and pointed comments, about the casual racism hidden beneath concerns about professional standards. Because he wants Claire back, Marcus said quietly, and he sees me as competition. This is about a woman? This is about a woman who chose to step back from vendor meetings to protect both our careers. A woman who's been nothing but professional despite obvious chemistry between us. Marcus stood up, decision crystallizing. Tyler's trying to eliminate the competition by destroying our business. James was quiet for a long moment. What do you want to do about it? Document everything. Keep copies of those reference calls. And let Tyler keep digging, because the deeper he goes, the more obvious it becomes that this isn't about business standards. And if he finds something to twist against us? Marcus met his partner's eyes steadily. Then we deal with it honestly, the same way we deal with everything else. Saturday evening, Claire sat in her apartment trying to focus on a book when her mother called. I just had the most interesting conversation with Tyler, Evelyn said without preamble. He seemed very concerned about your job security. Claire closed her book with a sigh. What did he tell you? That you've become involved with someone inappropriate, someone who could damage your reputation and hurt your promotion chances. Evelyn's voice carried the tone she'd used when Claire was 16 and caught sneaking out. Is there something you need to tell me? Tyler is exaggerating a situation that doesn't exist. So you're not dating anyone? Claire hesitated. Technically, she and Marcus weren't dating. They'd had one coffee conversation and made an agreement to wait until after the audit. But Tyler's interference had turned their professional discretion into something that looked like deception. I met someone, Claire said carefully. But we've agreed to keep things professional until after my promotion review. Tyler is creating drama where none exists. What does this person do for work? Another loaded question. Claire knew her mother's concerns about social standing and career compatibility. He owns a facilities management company. He's bidding on a contract with the hotel? A small business owner. Evelyn's tone suggested she was trying to sound supportive. That's nice. What's his background? He's intelligent, hardworking, and kind. He treats people with respect regardless of their position or status. He goes out of his way to help others without expecting recognition. That's wonderful, dear. But Tyler mentioned what? Well, he suggested that this man might not have the same social background as you, that the differences could cause complications. Claire felt heat rise in her chest. Mother, are you asking about his race? Silence stretched across the phone line. I just want you to be aware of potential challenges, Evelyn said finally. Not everyone is as open-minded as we'd like them to be. Workplace politics can be complicated when personal relationships cross certain boundaries. The only boundary being crossed is Tyler's interference in my personal life. Tyler cares about you, Claire. He's established, stable. You two had such a lovely relationship. Tyler is manipulative and controlling. And honestly, Mother, I'm disappointed that you're more concerned about social appearances than about my happiness. Another long pause. I just want what's best for you, Evelyn said quietly. Then trust me to know what that is. After hanging up, Claire paced her apartment feeling angry and isolated. Tyler was systematically undermining her support system, planting doubts with family members and colleagues. But Mrs. Green's letter sat on her kitchen counter as a reminder that not everyone judged relationships by social status or race. Some people still believed in character over circumstances. Claire picked up her phone and typed a message to Marcus. Thinking about you. Hope you're doing okay. His response came 20 minutes later. Thinking about you, too. This will be over soon. It was a small comfort, but it was enough. Monday morning arrived with crisp air and nervous energy. The corporate audit team set up in the hotel's conference room with laptops, binders, and the methodical approach of people who investigated policies for a living. Claire spent the day in her office, deliberately staying away from anything related to vendor relationships. She focused on guest services reports, staff scheduling, and the dozens of small details that kept a hotel running smoothly. At 2 p.m., her phone rang with a call from an unknown number. Ms. Whitmore, this is Sandra Chen from Corporate Compliance. Could we speak with you for a few minutes? Claire's heart hammered as she walked to the conference room. The audit team consisted of 3 people. Sandra Chen, a serious woman in her 40s. David Martinez, a younger man with wire-rimmed glasses. And Patricia Hill, an older woman who radiated competence. Please sit, Sandra said, gesturing to a chair across from the panel. We're reviewing vendor relationship protocols and wanted to ask about your interactions with Reed and Harlow facilities. Of course. We understand you recused yourself from vendor meetings related to this company. Can you explain that decision? Claire took a breath. Marcus Reed asked me out approximately 3 weeks ago. I declined because of workplace policies. However, when a staff photo suggested a personal relationship might exist, I voluntarily recused myself to avoid any appearance of impropriety. David Martinez consulted his notes. Were there any actual improprieties? Favoritism? Special treatment? Inappropriate contact? No. All interactions were professional and documented. I maintained appropriate boundaries while ensuring the hotel's maintenance needs were met. We received a guest letter praising both your handling of an emergency situation and Mr. Reed's professional response, Patricia Hill said, referencing Mrs. Green's testimony. The letter indicates exemplary behavior from both parties. Relief flooded Claire's chest. Mrs. Green witnessed the flood response firsthand. She saw how we prioritized hotel operations and guest safety over personal considerations. We also received some anonymous concerns about potential conflicts of interest, Sandra continued. Allegations that you might have shown preferential treatment to Reed and Harlow. I can provide complete documentation of every interaction, Claire said firmly. Timeline, witnesses, work orders, everything. My recusal was precautionary, not because any actual conflicts occurred. The three auditors exchanged glances. Ms. Whitmore, your documentation is thorough and your voluntary recusal shows good judgment, David said. We see no evidence of policy violations or conflicts of interest. What about the anonymous concerns? Anonymous allegations without supporting evidence don't constitute grounds for disciplinary action, Patricia replied, especially when contradicted by witness testimony and documentation. Claire felt her shoulders drop with relief. Thank you. However, Sandra added, we do want to address the source of those anonymous concerns. Someone has been making repeated calls to our audit hotline with increasingly detailed allegations about vendor favoritism. Any idea who? We can't share specifics, but I will say that when someone calls 6 times in 3 days with allegations that can't be substantiated, it raises questions about motivation rather than validity. After the meeting, Claire walked back to her office on unsteady legs. Tyler's campaign was backfiring. His anonymous reports were being dismissed as harassment rather than legitimate concerns. But the damage to her stress levels and peace of mind was already done. Tuesday morning brought a knock on Marcus's workshop door. He opened it to find a tall, well-dressed man with perfectly styled hair and an expensive smile. Marcus Reed, I'm Tyler Ames. I think we need to talk. Marcus stepped outside, closing the door behind him. No way was Tyler getting into his workspace. About what? About Claire Whitmore and the complications you're causing for her career. Tyler's confidence was absolute, like a man used to getting his way through intimidation and social pressure. I'm not causing any complications for Claire's career. Really? Because from where I stand, your pursuit of someone way out of your league is jeopardizing her promotion and reputation. Tyler's smile sharpened. Claire comes from a good family. Private education, connections, professional standards. She's being considered for management positions at upscale properties. And she doesn't need to be dragged down by association with a maintenance worker who bought himself a fancy title. Marcus felt anger flash through his chest, but he kept his voice steady. Is that how you see it? That I'm dragging her down? Look, I'm sure you're a nice guy, hardworking, reliable, all that. But Claire needs someone who can match her ambitions, someone who moves in the right circles, knows the right people, understands her world. Someone like you. Exactly. Tyler's facade slipped slightly, revealing the entitlement underneath. Claire and I have history. We understand each other. We're compatible in ways that matter. Marcus studied Tyler's face, seeing the casual racism and class prejudice wrapped in concerns about compatibility. This was a man who genuinely believed social status determined worth. You're the one who's been calling the corporate audit hotline, Marcus said. It wasn't a question. Tyler's smile faltered. I don't know what you're talking about. You're the one who reported vendor favoritism, who called our business references asking leading questions, who told Claire's mother that I was inappropriate for her. I'm protecting someone I care about from making a career-limiting mistake. You're sabotaging her relationship because you can't handle rejection. Tyler stepped closer, his voice dropping to a threatening tone. Back off, Reed. You're out of your depth here. Claire will realize that eventually, and when she does, you'll be nothing but an embarrassment she has to live down. Marcus held his ground. I think this conversation is over. Think about what I said. You really want to be the reason Claire's career stalls? The reason her family questions her judgment? The reason colleagues whisper behind her back? Tyler walked away, leaving Marcus standing in his parking lot with fury and doubt warring in his chest. Because underneath the racism and manipulation, Tyler had touched on Marcus's deepest fear, that pursuing Claire would hurt her more than it helped her. That love wasn't always enough to overcome the world's prejudices. Wednesday brought the resolution Claire had been hoping for. At 11 a.m., Patel called her into his office with a relieved smile. "The audit team finished their review," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "No policy violations found, no conflicts of interest. Your voluntary recusal was noted as exemplary judgment under pressure." Claire felt tears of relief prick her eyes. "Thank you. Furthermore, they were quite impressed with your documentation and professionalism. The audit report specifically mentions your handling of the flood emergency as an example of proper crisis management." "What about the anonymous complaints?" Patel's expression darkened slightly. "The audit team recommended that we investigate the source of those complaints. Someone was using our ethics hotline to harass you rather than report legitimate concerns." "Any idea who?" "We have strong suspicions, and if we can prove harassment, that person will be banned from hotel property permanently." After leaving Patel's office, Claire felt like she could breathe properly for the first time in weeks. The audit was over. Her reputation was intact. The anonymous harassment had been exposed as malicious rather than legitimate. Now, she just had to figure out how to reconnect with Marcus after days of enforced silence. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jada. "Marcus is miserable. Whatever happened, he thinks it's over between you two. Can you fix this?" Claire stared at the message, realizing that Marcus might have interpreted her silence as rejection rather than protection. She typed back, "On my way to fix it right now." Claire found Marcus in his workshop at 6:30 that evening, hunched over paperwork with the weight of the world on his shoulders. She knocked softly on the doorframe. "Got a minute?" Marcus looked up, surprise and wariness flickering across his face. "Claire, is everything okay? Is the audit—" "The audit is over. We're cleared. No policy violations, no conflicts of interest. Our professionalism was specifically praised." She stepped into the workshop, hands shaking slightly. "I came to apologize." "For what?" "For letting other people's opinions matter more than my own feelings. For stepping back when I should have stepped forward. For letting you think that silence meant disinterest instead of protection." Marcus set down his pen, studying her face. "Tyler came to see me yesterday." "He what?" "Told me I was out of my league. That pursuing you would damage your career and reputation. That you needed someone from your own world." Marcus's voice was quiet but steady. "He wasn't entirely wrong about the challenges." Claire felt anger flash through her chest. "Tyler doesn't get to decide what I need. Neither does my mother, or corporate auditors, or anyone else who thinks they know what's best for my life. But the challenges he mentioned are real, Claire. People will judge. Opportunities might be affected. Your family might not approve. My family will adjust. Opportunities that depend on who I date aren't opportunities I want. And people who judge relationships based on race or social status aren't people whose opinions matter to me." Marcus stood up, hope and uncertainty battling in his expression. "Are you sure? Because once we cross this line publicly, there's no going back to professional distance." Claire stepped closer, close enough to see the gold flecks in his brown eyes. "I don't want professional distance anymore. I want honesty. I want partnership. I want to see where this leads without interference from people who think they know better." Tyler won't give up easily. Tyler has been exposed as a harasser who used corporate ethics hotlines for personal vendettas. Patel is considering banning him from hotel property. His opinion officially doesn't matter anymore. Marcus reached out tentatively, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You're sure about this? About us?" I'm sure about wanting to find out who we could be together. I'm sure about choosing courage over caution. I'm sure about you being worth whatever challenges come with loving someone from a different background. Loving someone? Claire smiled, feeling brave and terrified and hopeful all at once. Too soon? Not nearly soon enough, Marcus said, and kissed her. The kiss was gentle and firm and full of weeks of restrained feelings finally set free. When they broke apart, Claire felt like she was seeing the world in brighter colors. So, what happens now? Marcus asked, his forehead resting against hers. Now we take things one day at a time. We set boundaries we both feel comfortable with. We deal with challenges as they come up instead of anticipating problems that might never happen. And work. Patel said the audit team was impressed with how we handled the emergency situation. Reed and Harlow's contract renewal looks very promising. Marcus smiled. James will be relieved. He was convinced Tyler's interference would cost us the account. Tyler's interference backfired. Truth and documentation trumped anonymous harassment. Good, because I was starting to worry that choosing you meant destroying everything I've built. Claire took his hands in hers. Choosing each other doesn't mean destroying anything. It means building something new together. They spent the next hour talking through boundaries and expectations. No private conversations on hotel property until the contract renewal was finalized. Off-site dates were fine. Family introductions could wait until they both felt ready. When Claire finally left the workshop, it was with plans for dinner Saturday night and the feeling that she'd chosen correctly. That sometimes love was worth the risk. Saturday evening, Claire stood in front of her mirror adjusting a blue dress she'd chosen carefully. Nice enough to show effort, casual enough to suggest comfort over pretension. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Table's ready when you are. No pressure, just good food and better company. The restaurant he'd chosen was perfect, a small Italian place overlooking the marina, where couples shared wine and conversation while boats bobbed in the evening light. Not too fancy, not too casual. Just right for two people getting to know each other without workplace complications. Marcus stood when she approached the table, and Claire's breath caught slightly. He wore a charcoal sweater and dark jeans, looking relaxed and confident in a way that made her heart skip. You look beautiful, he said, holding her chair. You clean up pretty well yourself. They ordered wine and settled into conversation that flowed as easily as it had during their late-night lobby talks. Marcus told her about growing up with three sisters who'd taught him to appreciate strong women. Claire shared stories about her college years and her first, disaster-filled week as an assistant manager. I spilled coffee on 3 different guests, she said, laughing at the memory. My supervisor told me I had 2 choices: quit hospitality or learn to carry beverages properly. Obviously, you chose option 2. Obviously, though I still get nervous carrying full coffee pots. The food was excellent, but Claire found herself more interested in watching Marcus talk about his business plans. He wanted to expand Reed and Harlow into specialized hospitality maintenance, creating opportunities for his crew members to develop technical skills. James thinks I'm too focused on the human element, Marcus said, twirling pasta around his fork. But I believe business success comes from taking care of people first. That's exactly the approach that impressed everyone in your vendor presentation, and it's why you'll succeed. You sound very confident. I am confident. You have integrity, vision, and the practical experience to back up your plans. Those are rare qualities. Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. Thank you for believing in me, even when I wasn't sure I believed in myself. Thank you for being patient while I figured out what mattered most. They walked along the marina after dinner, hands linked, talking about everything except the complications that had brought them together. The evening air was cool and clear, filled with the sound of waves and the distant laughter of other couples enjoying the waterfront. "I have something to tell you," Claire said as they paused near the lighthouse. "Patel officially offered me the hotel manager position this morning." Marcus stopped walking. "Claire, that's incredible. Congratulations." "Thank you, but there's more. The position comes with oversight of all vendor relationships, which means I'll be your primary contact for contract renewals." "Is that a problem?" "Not if we handle it properly. Full transparency, documented interactions, clear boundaries between personal and professional relationships." Marcus smiled. "We've gotten pretty good at boundaries." "We have. But no more hiding. No more protecting each other from imaginary problems. If we're going to do this, we do it honestly." "Honestly sounds perfect." As they walked back toward their cars, Claire felt the settling sensation of pieces falling into place. The promotion she'd worked 3 years to earn. The relationship she'd almost talked herself out of pursuing. The confidence that came from choosing authenticity over appearances. "One more thing," Marcus said as they reached her car. "Reed and Harlow got official notice this afternoon. Contract renewed for 2 years with an expansion option." Claire threw her arms around him, laughing with pure joy. "We did it. Both of us. We got everything we worked for." "We did it right," Marcus corrected, holding her close, "with integrity and patience and respect for each other." "The best way to do anything." When Marcus kissed her goodnight, under the street lamp, Claire felt like she was exactly where she belonged. Not because it was easy or socially acceptable or professionally advantageous, because it was real and honest and built on the foundation of two people who'd chosen each other despite the complications. The kind of love worth waiting for. 3 months later, Claire stood in her new office on the hotel's 4th floor, reviewing quarterly reports with the satisfaction that came from work well done. The Harbor House was running more smoothly than ever under her management, with guest satisfaction scores at an all-time high. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. Mrs. Green stood in the doorway, wearing a bright yellow dress and a knowing smile. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important, dear." "Never too busy for our favorite guest. How can I help you?" "Actually, I wanted to help you." Mrs. Green settled into the chair across from Claire's desk. "I just finished writing my annual letter to corporate about hotel service quality. I made sure to mention the exceptional partnership between management and maintenance contractors." Claire smiled. "You didn't have to do that." "Of course I did. Good partnerships should be recognized and supported." Mrs. Green's eyes twinkled. "Speaking of partnerships, I understand congratulations are in order." "Congratulations?" "I may be 74, but I'm not blind. The way you and that young man look at each other these days, it's lovely to see." Heat crept up Claire's neck. "We're very happy." "I'm sure you are, and I want you to know that some of us old-fashioned guests think it's wonderful. True partnership, professional and personal, is becoming rare these days." After Mrs. Green left, Claire returned to her reports with a light heart. The past 3 months had been challenging and rewarding in equal measure. Learning her new role while navigating a public relationship with a vendor had required careful attention to boundaries and transparency. But it had been worth every complicated moment. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Dinner tonight? Jada's making her famous lasagna and she specifically requested your presence." Claire typed back. "Wouldn't miss it. What time?" 6 cows. Fair warning, she's probably going to ask when you're making this official." "Official?" "You know Jada. She believes in marriage, mortgages, and making honest men out of her brothers." Claire laughed, remembering Marcus's sister's directness during their first family dinner. Jada had grilled Claire about her intentions with the same intensity she used in the ER with difficult patients. But underneath the protective questioning, Claire had sensed approval. Jada recognized that Claire genuinely cared about Marcus's happiness rather than what he could do for her career. At 5:45, Claire gathered her things and headed for the elevator. In the lobby, she spotted Marcus near the concierge desk, checking the anti-slip mats he'd installed months ago. He wore his usual work clothes, cargo pants, and a Reed and Harlow polo, but carried himself with the confidence of a successful business owner. "Inspection complete?" she asked, approaching with a smile. "Just making sure everything's holding up. Can't have our favorite hotel manager filing safety complaints." "Your favorite hotel manager has nothing but praise for Reed and Harlow's attention to detail." Marcus grinned. "Good, because your opinion matters most." They walked out together, hands linked, drawing warm smiles from staff members who'd watched their relationship develop over the months. No more hiding, no more apologizing for choosing each other. In the parking lot, Tyler Ames sat in his car watching them leave. His expression was bitter with defeat and resentment. 6 months of interference and manipulation had accomplished nothing except exposing his own character flaws. Claire noticed him but felt no anger, only pity for a man who'd mistaken control for love and status for worth. "Your ex is watching us again?" Marcus observed as they reached their cars. "Let him watch. Maybe he'll eventually learn that some things can't be bought or manipulated." "Think he'll give up?" "I think he already has. The harassment complaints cost him his membership at the country club. His reputation for business integrity took a hit when word spread about his investigative campaign. Tyler's learning that actions have consequences." As they drove to Jada's house in separate cars, Claire reflected on how much had changed since that first night when Marcus had asked her for coffee. Her fears about workplace complications had proved mostly unfounded. The challenges Tyler had threatened never materialized beyond minor gossip that quickly faded. The real challenge had been internal, learning to trust her own judgment over other people's expectations. At Jada's house, the evening unfolded with the comfortable chaos of family dinner. Jada's children, twins, age 8, monopolized Marcus's attention with stories about school and requests for piggyback rides. Claire found herself relaxing into the warm, noisy atmosphere that was so different from her own family's formal gatherings. "You're good with kids," Evelyn Whitmore said quietly. Claire turned to find her mother standing in the kitchen doorway, having arrived earlier with a bottle of wine and an apology. "They're sweet kids." "Marcus is good with them too. Patient. Kind." Claire nodded, watching Marcus help the twins build an elaborate tower out of dinner rolls. After months of resistance, Evelyn had gradually come around to accepting her daughter's relationship. Meeting Marcus in person had helped. His genuine kindness and obvious devotion to Claire made it hard to maintain prejudicial assumptions. "I owe you an apology," Evelyn continued. "I let other people's opinions influence my reaction to your relationship. That was wrong of me. Thank you for saying that." Tyler was very convincing about his concerns. "But watching you and Marcus together, I can see that you're happy. Really happy. And that's what matters most." After dinner, the family gathered in Jada's backyard around a fire pit, sharing stories and laughter under the stars. Claire sat beside Marcus on a wooden bench, his arm around her shoulders, feeling completely at home. "So," Jada said with characteristic directness, "when are you two going to make this official?" "Jada," Marcus warned, but he was smiling. "What? I'm just asking what everyone's thinking. You've been together 6 months. You're both successful. You clearly adore each other. What are you waiting for?" Claire felt Marcus's arm tighten slightly around her. They'd talked about the future in general terms, but never about specific timelines or commitments. "We're taking things one day at a time," Claire said diplomatically. Boring, announced 8-year-old Jasmine. Uncle Marcus should ask her to marry him. Then we could have a wedding with cake and dancing. And you could move in with Uncle Marcus and help us with homework, added her brother James Jr. Marcus laughed. You two are very focused on this wedding idea. Because weddings are awesome, Jasmine explained with 8-year-old logic. And Claire makes you smile different. Different how? Like you're happy inside and outside at the same time. Claire felt her heart melt at the simple observation. Children saw things adults sometimes missed. The way love changed people from the inside out. Later, as they helped clear dishes, Marcus pulled Claire aside. Sorry about the interrogation, he said quietly. Jada believes in direct communication. I noticed, but I don't mind the questions. No? No, because the answer isn't complicated. When you're ready to ask, I'm ready to say yes. Marcus stopped loading plates into the dishwasher and turned to face her fully. You're sure? I'm sure about wanting to build a life with you. Sure about choosing love over logistics. Sure about believing that what we have is worth making official. Marcus kissed her softly, right there in Jada's kitchen with family chaos swirling around them. Good, he said against her lips. Because I've been carrying a ring around for 2 weeks, trying to figure out the perfect moment to ask. Any moment with you is perfect. Even washing dishes in my sister's kitchen? Especially washing dishes in your sister's kitchen. Real life, real family, real love. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a simple solitaire diamond on a white gold band. Elegant without being ostentatious, beautiful without being flashy. Claire Whitmore, will you marry me? Will you choose this messy, complicated, wonderful life with me? Yes, Claire said, tears streaming down her face. Yes to all of it. The kitchen erupted in cheers as the twins burst through the door, followed by Jada and Evelyn and everyone else who'd been pretending not to eavesdrop. As Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger, Claire thought about the journey that had brought them here. The initial misjudgment, the workplace complications, the interference from people who thought they knew better. All of it had led to this moment, choosing each other openly, honestly, with family surrounding them and the future stretching ahead, full of possibility. The ring fit perfectly, catching the kitchen light and sparkling like a promise. Like a new beginning. Like love that had been worth waiting for. 1 year later, Claire stood at the altar of the small chapel overlooking Harbor Bay, wearing her grandmother's simple white dress and carrying Mrs. Green's garden roses. The wedding was intimate. Family, close friends, and a few long-time hotel guests who'd become like family over the years. Marcus waited at the altar in a perfectly tailored black suit, the same confident smile that had caught her attention during that first vendor meeting. Beside him stood James Harlow as best man, while Jada served as Claire's matron of honor. The ceremony was short and sweet, focused on promises rather than pageantry. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, the small gathering erupted in applause and cheers. Ladies and gentlemen, the minister announced with a smile, I present Mr. and Mrs. Reed. As they walked back down the aisle together, Claire spotted Mrs. Green in the front row, dabbing at her eyes with a lace handkerchief. Beautiful wedding, dear, Mrs. Green called out. Just like I knew it would be. At the reception in Jada's backyard, transformed with string lights and flowers, Claire and Marcus shared their first dance to soft jazz while their family and friends celebrated around them. Any regrets? Marcus asked as they swayed together. Only one, Claire said, smiling up at her new husband. What's that? That it took us so long to get here. The timing was perfect, Marcus disagreed. We needed to prove to ourselves that this could work before we made it permanent. And now? Now I know we can handle anything as long as we're honest with each other. Good thing we're planning on forever. The best thing. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Claire and Marcus stood on Jada's porch watching the sunset paint the harbor in shades of gold and pink. Tomorrow they'd fly to Hawaii for their honeymoon. Next week they'd return to their jobs, Claire as hotel manager, Marcus as the owner of Reed and Harlow facilities, now expanded to serve 5 properties along the coast. But tonight, they were simply 2 people who'd chosen each other despite the complications, who'd built something beautiful on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine affection. "Thank you," Claire said quietly. "For what?" "For asking me to coffee that first night, for being patient while I figured things out, for showing me what real partnership looks like. Thank you for saying yes, both times." Claire laughed, thinking of the night Marcus had proposed in Jada's kitchen. "Best proposal ever, by the way. Washing dishes with family chaos and your 8-year-old niece cheering in the background. You said any moment with me was perfect. I meant it then. I mean it now." As the stars came out over Harbor Bay, Claire and Marcus headed inside to say goodbye to their guests and begin their new life together. Not because it was easy or expected or socially advantageous, because they'd chosen love over fear, authenticity over appearances, and each other over everyone else's opinions, the way all the best love stories begin. 6 months after their wedding, Claire stood in the lobby of the new Harbor Bay Resort and Spa, reviewing construction progress with the project manager. The resort was twice the size of the Harbor House Hotel, with ocean view suites, a full spa, and conference facilities that would attract business travelers from across the region. "The grand opening is still scheduled for December 1st, the project manager said, consulting his tablet. "But we'll need all vendor contracts finalized by October to ensure smooth operations." Claire nodded, making notes on her phone. As regional manager for Harbor Bay Hospitality Group, she now oversaw 3 properties: the original Harbor House Hotel, the boutique Lighthouse Inn downtown, and this newest addition to their portfolio. "I'll have vendor recommendations to you by next Friday," she said. "We're looking at existing partners who can scale up to meet increased demand." Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Lunch today? James wants to celebrate the resort contract news." Claire smiled as she typed back, "One dice at Marina Cafe? I'll bring good news." The good news was that Reed and Harlow facilities had been selected as the primary maintenance contractor for all 3 Harbor Bay properties. Marcus's company had grown from 6 employees to 22 in the past year, with specialized teams for hospitality, healthcare, and commercial real estate. What made Claire proudest wasn't the business success, though that was satisfying, but how Marcus had maintained his hands-on approach even as the company expanded. He still knew every employee's name, still responded personally to emergency calls, still treated maintenance work as a calling rather than just a job. At lunch, Claire found Marcus and James Harlow already seated at their usual table overlooking the marina. Both men looked relaxed and happy, the stress of the past year's rapid growth replaced by the confidence that came from proven success. "Congratulations," Claire said, sliding into the chair beside Marcus. 22 employees and 3 major contracts. Not bad for a guy who used to mop floors alone at midnight. "I still mop floors when needed," Marcus replied, kissing her cheek. "Just not alone anymore." James laughed. "Yesterday I found him cleaning the lobby at the medical center because one of our crew called in sick. The facilities director was shocked to see the company owner with a mop." "What did you tell them?" Claire asked. "That leadership means doing whatever needs to be done," Marcus said simply. "Same thing my father taught me." The conversation turned to the challenges of managing rapid growth while maintaining quality standards. Marcus had hired Jada part-time to handle employee benefits and safety training, combining her nursing background with the company's commitment to worker welfare. "She's terrifying in the best possible way," James said with obvious admiration. "Yesterday she made a crew leader redo safety protocols 3 times until they met her standards." "That's my sister," Marcus agreed fondly. "She's never met a standard she couldn't improve." Claire watched her husband talk about his employees with the same care he'd once shown Mrs. Green and other hotel guests. Success hadn't changed his fundamental character. It had simply given him a bigger platform for the kindness that had attracted her in the first place. "Speaking of standards," Claire said, "I have some news about our personal projects." Both men looked at her expectantly. "The Harbor Bay Community Foundation approved our scholarship application. We're officially funding 2 annual scholarships for hospitality management students at the community college." Marcus's face lit up with genuine joy. The scholarship fund had been his idea, a way to give back to the community that had supported their businesses. They'd structured it specifically for students from working-class backgrounds who wanted to pursue careers in hospitality. "That's incredible," James said. "What's the timeline?" "First scholarships will be awarded next spring. The foundation wants us involved in the selection process, maybe some mentoring if the students are interested." "I'd love to be involved," Marcus said immediately, "especially if we can connect scholarship recipients with internship opportunities at our properties." Claire felt her heart swell with pride and affection. This was why she'd fallen in love with Marcus. Not just his success or kindness, but his constant desire to lift other people up. The scholarship fund represented everything they valued: hard work, opportunity, and the belief that background didn't determine potential. After lunch, they walked along the marina where they'd shared their first real conversation months ago. The afternoon was crisp and bright, perfect for the kind of unhurried stroll that had become their favorite way to decompress from busy work schedules. "I have something to tell you," Claire said as they paused near the lighthouse where Marcus had proposed. "Good something or concerning something?" "Good something. Really good something." Claire took his hand, suddenly nervous despite their years together. "I'm pregnant." Marcus stopped walking entirely, his face cycling through surprise, joy, and wonder in rapid succession. "Pregnant? Are you sure?" 3 different tests. Doctor's appointment. Confirmed it yesterday." Claire watched his expression carefully. "I know we said we'd wait another year before starting a family, but—" Marcus silenced her with a kiss that tasted like laughter and tears and pure happiness. "Are you happy?" Claire asked when they broke apart. "I'm terrified and thrilled and completely overwhelmed," Marcus said, his forehead resting against hers. "In other words, yes, I'm incredibly happy." They spent the rest of their walk talking about nursery plans and childcare logistics and all the practical details that came with adding a family member to their already busy lives. But underneath the planning, Claire felt the deep satisfaction of building something lasting with a partner who shared her values. That evening, they drove to Jada's house for family dinner, a weekly tradition that had become even more important as their extended family grew. Jada's twins, now 9, had appointed themselves official aunt and uncle to any future Reed family additions. "Aunt Claire," Jasmine called out as they walked through the front door. "We made cookies shaped like boats." "And we only burned 1 batch," added James Jr. with pride. During dinner, Claire and Marcus shared their pregnancy news, which resulted in the kind of joyful chaos that had become familiar at Reed family gatherings. Jada immediately launched into nurse mode, asking about prenatal vitamins and doctor appointments. The twins demanded to know if the baby would be a boy or girl, and could they teach it to play soccer. Even Evelyn, who'd driven over with a casserole and quiet happiness, seemed genuinely delighted by the prospect of becoming a grandmother. Have you thought about names? She asked as they cleared dishes. We just found out yesterday. Claire laughed. But we're open to suggestions. Ruth, said a voice from the kitchen doorway. Everyone turned to see Mrs. Green standing there with a covered dish and her signature knowing smile. At 75, she'd become an unofficial grandmother to the entire extended family, showing up for birthdays and holidays with homemade desserts and gentle wisdom. Ruth? Marcus asked. It means friend or companion, Mrs. Green explained, setting her dish on the counter. And I happen to know that a certain elderly hotel guest has always been partial to that name. Claire felt tears prick her eyes. Mrs. Green had been there from the beginning, witnessing their first tentative conversations and supporting their relationship when others questioned it, including her in their family planning, felt perfectly right. Ruth for a girl, Claire agreed immediately. What about for a boy? David, Jada suggested, after Dad. Marcus nodded slowly. David Reed had been a maintenance supervisor who'd taught his son that honest work was honorable work, that character mattered more than circumstances, and that taking care of people was the highest calling. Naming a child after him would honor both memory and values. David, for a boy, Ruth, for a girl, Marcus said, taking Claire's hand. Perfect. 3 months later, Claire stood in the nursery of their new house, a craftsman-style home 3 blocks from the beach, directing Marcus as he assembled a crib that had come with approximately 50 pages of instructions. The manual says tab A goes into slot B, Marcus said, consulting the diagram with engineering precision. But tab A appears to be upside down. Maybe try rotating it? I've rotated it 17 different ways. I'm beginning to think this crib was designed by someone who's never seen a baby. Claire laughed, settling into the rocking chair they'd bought at an antique store downtown. At 5 months pregnant, she was just beginning to show, and the reality of their growing family was starting to feel tangible. The house itself represented another milestone in their partnership. They'd chosen it together based on practical concerns. Good schools, safe neighborhood, space for a home office and workshop, rather than status or investment potential. Marcus had insisted on a garage where he could still work on small projects. Claire had wanted a kitchen big enough for family gatherings. Got it, Marcus announced triumphantly, stepping back from the fully assembled crib. 1 baby bed, suitable for occupancy. It's beautiful, Claire said, meaning it. The crib was simple white wood, with clean lines and sturdy construction. Exactly what they'd wanted for their first child. Marcus sat on the floor beside her chair, leaning against her legs with the comfortable intimacy of a couple who'd learned to navigate life's challenges together. Are you nervous about becoming parents? Claire asked, running her fingers through his hair. Terrified, Marcus admitted. But the good kind of terrified, like starting a business or getting married, scared but excited about the possibilities. I feel the same way, like we're about to discover parts of ourselves we didn't know existed. We'll figure it out as we go, same way we figured out everything else. Together. Their conversation was interrupted by the doorbell. Claire struggled out of the rocking chair while Marcus went to answer it. She could hear voices in the hallway, Marcus greeting someone warmly, then footsteps approaching the nursery. Tyler Ames appeared in the doorway, looking uncomfortable and slightly sheepish. Claire's first instinct was anger, but it quickly faded to curiosity. Tyler looked different, less polished, more genuine. His expensive suit was replaced by casual clothes, and his usual confident demeanor seemed tempered by something that might have been humility. I hope it's okay that I stopped by, Tyler said, his voice lacking its usual presumption. I wanted to apologize. Properly this time. Marcus moved protectively closer to Claire, but his expression remained neutral. Apologize. For what, specifically? For interfering in your relationship, for making anonymous complaints to the audit committee, for trying to undermine your business because I couldn't handle rejection. Tyler's voice was steady, but clearly difficult. For the racist assumptions I made about your relationship and your worthiness as a partner for Claire. The admission hung in the air. Claire had expected Tyler to eventually acknowledge his interference, but hearing him name the racism explicitly was surprising. What changed? Claire asked. Therapy? Tyler said with a rueful smile. Court-mandated therapy after the harassment charges. Turns out I had some issues to work through about control and entitlement and my assumptions about what I deserved versus what I'd earned. Marcus and Claire exchanged glances. The harassment charges had been filed after Tyler's continued interference escalated to following Claire home and showing up at her workplace uninvited. The legal consequences had been minor, a restraining order and mandatory counseling, but apparently effective. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Tyler continued. I know I caused real damage and pain. I just wanted you to know that I understand how wrong I was, and I'm working to be better. Thank you for saying that, Claire said carefully. It means something that you're taking responsibility. For what it's worth, I can see that you two are genuinely happy together. And your success, both of your success, is obvious to anyone paying attention. Tyler glanced around the nursery, taking in the assembled crib and the careful preparations for their growing family. Congratulations, by the way. You're going to be amazing parents. After Tyler left, Claire and Marcus sat quietly in the nursery processing the unexpected conversation. That was mature of him, Marcus said finally. Very. I'm glad he's getting help. Do you think he meant it? The apology? Claire considered the question. I think he's trying to mean it, and that's a start. Forgiveness is a process, Marcus agreed, same as everything else worth doing. 6 weeks later, Claire stood at the podium in the Harbor Bay Community Center, addressing a room full of hospitality students, industry professionals, and community members gathered for the first Harbor Bay Hospitality Scholarship ceremony. When Marcus and I created this scholarship fund, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the microphone. We wanted to honor the belief that talent and character matter more than background or circumstances. We believe that opportunity should be available to anyone willing to work hard and treat people with dignity. In the audience, she could see familiar faces. Mrs. Green in the front row, Jada and her twins beaming with pride, her mother sitting beside Marcus's construction crew foreman, James Harlow, taking photos for the company newsletter. But most importantly, she could see the two scholarship recipients, Maria Santos, a single mother studying hotel management while working full-time at a local restaurant, and Kevin Washington, a former military veteran pursuing a degree in hospitality administration. This year's scholarship recipients embody the values we want to support, Claire continued. Maria Santos has maintained a 3.8 GPA while raising 2 children and working 40 hours a week. Kevin Washington has organized food drives for homeless veterans while completing his coursework with distinction. She paused, thinking about the journey that had brought her to this moment. 2 years ago, she'd been an assistant manager worried about workplace policies and professional appearances. Now she was a regional manager, a wife, an expectant mother, and a community advocate. All because she'd chosen to see past surfaces to character. To value authenticity over approval. To believe that love was worth the complications. The Harbor Bay Hospitality Scholarship represents our commitment to giving back to the community that has supported our growth, Claire concluded. But more than that, it represents our belief in the power of opportunity to transform lives. After the ceremony, Marcus joined her at the reception, where scholarship recipients mingled with local business owners and potential mentors. Beautiful speech, he said, wrapping his arms around her from behind and resting his hands on her growing belly. Baby Ruth agrees. She's been kicking through the entire event. Baby David, you mean? Claire corrected with a smile. And those kicks might just be excitement about the dessert table. We should probably confirm the gender before we commit to names. Where's the fun in that? They moved through the reception together, talking with students about internship opportunities and listening to industry veterans share career advice. This was what Claire loved most about their expanded roles in the community, the chance to be part of something bigger than their individual success. Near the end of the evening, Maria Santos approached them with tears in her eyes and a thank you card in her hand. I don't know how to express what this means to me, she said, her voice thick with emotion. The scholarship isn't just money. It's someone believing I can succeed. You've already proved you can succeed, Marcus replied gently. We're just honored to be part of your journey. When I graduate, I want to work somewhere that values the same things you do. Integrity, community, taking care of people. There are more places like that than you might think, Claire said. And if there aren't enough, maybe you'll create one. On the drive home, Claire and Marcus reflected on the evening's success and the growing scope of their community involvement. I've been thinking about the future, Marcus said as they pulled into their driveway. Not just our future, but the bigger picture. What kind of bigger picture? Reed and Harlow is big enough now that we could franchise the model, bring the same standards and employee-focused approach to other markets. Claire considered the idea. That's ambitious and complex. Very. But imagine hospitality maintenance companies across the region that prioritize worker welfare and community investment, that see facilities management as community service rather than just profit generation. You'd want to stay involved in the day-to-day operations? I'd want to stay involved in setting standards and training franchisees. Make sure the values survive the expansion. Claire nodded thoughtfully. Marcus's vision aligned with her own dreams of building something lasting and meaningful. They'd proven that business success and social responsibility could coexist. Now they had the opportunity to spread that model. I have an idea too, she said as they walked to their front door. What if we developed a hospitality management training program specifically for working adults? Evening and weekend classes, childcare provided, real-world experience through partnerships with local businesses. A pipeline for our scholarship recipients? Exactly, and for anyone else who wants to change careers but can't afford to stop working. Marcus smiled as he unlocked their door. We're going to be busy parents. The best kind of busy, purpose-driven busy. Inside their house, they settled on the couch with herbal tea and detailed plans for their respective expansion ideas. This was how they'd always worked best: individual expertise combined with shared values and mutual support. At 10:30, Marcus's phone buzzed with an emergency call. Burst pipe at the medical center, flooding in the basement lab. I should go, he said, already reaching for his work clothes. Could be hours. Be careful, and call me when it's under control. Claire watched her husband transform from community leader back to hands-on facilities expert, grabbing his emergency kit and heading into the night to solve problems and protect people's work. This was the man she'd fallen in love with. Not the suit, or the business owner, or the community advocate, though she was proud of all those roles. She'd fallen in love with someone who cared about doing the right thing, who showed up when people needed help, who treated every job as an opportunity to make someone's day better. A man who still mopped floors when necessary, but who'd built something bigger than himself without losing his essential character. At midnight, her phone buzzed. Flood contained, labs protected, heading home. Love you both. Claire smiled, resting her hand on her belly where baby Ruth David was finally settling down for the night. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, more opportunities, more chances to build the life they'd chosen together. But tonight, she was simply a woman waiting for her husband to come home from saving someone's workplace, grateful for the journey that had brought them here. 2 months later, Claire stood in the maternity ward of Harbor Bay Medical Center, holding her daughter for the first time. Ruth Evelyn Reed had arrived 3 weeks early after a labor that had been intense, but mercifully short. Marcus sat beside the hospital bed, looking exhausted and elated, still wearing the work clothes he'd thrown on when Claire's contractions started during a vendor meeting at the resort. "She's perfect," he whispered, stroking Ruth's tiny hand with one finger. 10 fingers, 10 toes, and the strongest grip I've ever felt. "She gets that from her father," Claire said softly. "The strong grip and the stubbornness. And the beautiful eyes from her mother." Ruth yawned and settled deeper into Claire's arms, completely unaware that her birth had caused minor chaos at 3 different business locations when her parents suddenly needed to hand off responsibilities and rush to the hospital. A soft knock interrupted their quiet family moment. Jada peeked around the door with a balloon bouquet and a barely contained excitement. "Is it safe to come in? I brought reinforcements." Behind her came the twins, Evelyn, Mrs. Green, and James Harlow, all carrying flowers and gifts and the kind of overwhelming love that made new parents feel supported rather than overwhelmed. "She's beautiful," Evelyn whispered, tears in her eyes as she looked at her first grandchild. "Just beautiful." "Can we hold her?" Jasmine asked with 9-year-old directness. "We promise to be careful." Over the next hour, baby Ruth was passed carefully between family members while her parents watched with the mixture of pride and terror common to new parents. Mrs. Green declared her a perfect little angel with excellent timing. The twins took turns reading her a story from a picture book they'd brought specially for the occasion. James Harlow, unofficial uncle and business partner, presented Marcus with a gift bag containing a tiny Reed and Harlow polo shirt and a card signed by the entire company crew. "Everyone wanted you to know they're covering all emergency calls for the next 2 weeks," James said with a grin. "New fathers don't crawl under buildings to fix leaky pipes." "I can work," Marcus started to protest. "You can work on learning to change diapers," Jada interrupted firmly. "The pipes will survive without you for a few weeks." As the evening wound down and visiting hours ended, Claire found herself alone with Marcus and Ruth for the first time since the birth. The hospital room felt peaceful after the happy chaos of family celebration. "Are you ready for this?" Marcus asked, settling Ruth into the bassinet beside Claire's bed. "The sleepless nights and constant worry and complete life transformation?" "With you, I'm ready for anything. Even franchise expansion meetings with a baby strapped to your chest?" Claire laughed. "Even that. Though we might need to rethink our timeline for the training program launch. Or we might find that having a baby makes us more efficient with our work time. Optimist. Realist. We'll figure it out as we go. Same way we've figured out everything else." Claire watched her husband gently adjust Ruth's blanket, his large hands incredibly gentle with their tiny daughter. This was the man who'd asked her for coffee in a hotel lobby, who'd saved the building from flood damage, who'd built a successful company while maintaining his essential kindness. Now he was also the father of her child, and she couldn't wait to see how that role would change and expand the love she already felt for him. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what this time?" "For asking me out that night, for being patient when I was scared, for building this life with me, for giving me the family I didn't know I wanted." Marcus leaned over to kiss her forehead. "Thank you for saying yes, both times, and for choosing us over everyone else's expectations." "Best decision I ever made." "Same here." Outside their hospital room window, Harbor Bay sparkled in the darkness, its lights reflecting off the water like stars. Somewhere out there, their businesses continued running under capable management. Their scholarship recipients were studying for final exams. The community they'd helped build was thriving. But none of that mattered as much as the small family gathered in room 314, learning how to be parents and partners and protectors of something precious and new. Claire drifted off to sleep holding Marcus's hand while their daughter breathed softly in the bassinet between them. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and responsibilities, and the beautiful complexity of raising a child while building a business and serving a community. Tonight, they were simply three people who belonged together, grateful for the journey that had brought them here and excited for everything still to come. The love story that had begun with a rejected coffee invitation had become something bigger and more wonderful than either of them had imagined. Not because it was easy, but because they'd chosen each other consistently, honestly, with full hearts and clear eyes, the way all the best love stories grow. One choice at a time, one day at a time, one moment of courage at a time. Ruth stirred in her sleep and sighed contentedly, as if she already knew she'd been born into a family that understood the difference between appearances and authenticity, between status and character, between fitting in and belonging. She was going to grow up knowing that love wasn't about finding someone perfect, but about choosing someone real and building something beautiful together, despite the complications. The most important lesson anyone could learn. The end.